it is time to get started in the defender side of things. Wade, thanks for being here, man. How are you?
No, thanks for letting me come. Awesome.
Yeah,
I'm good.
big ass
Nice on Friday.
B-side San Diego.
Yeah.
All
I
right,
should have got
I
that
need to
one.
know really quick. Why on earth would you have that flag behind you? Tell me the relevance here.
Yeah, I am on the board for B-Side San Diego. So there's only
Oh,
three of
snap.
us. So I am one of the people who runs it every year. This year we are having it in the end of March, right? We
Okay.
at San Diego State. Last year we had around 500 people sign up, and it rained really, really hard that day in San Diego, which is unheard of. It doesn't ever rain here. So we actually only had we had like 100 people not show up, but it was probably for the better because we were packed.
Yeah.
We sold out of tickets, sold out of everything. It was a really fun time. And yeah, I'm a big part of the community down here in San Diego. I try to go to a meetup once a week. That sounds really
Nice.
bad when I say that, but there's around 12 different cyber meetups once a month here in San Diego.
I was gonna say, is there a better frequency that you were expecting? But then you gave that number, so
There's a lot.
oh, that's awesome. Well, folks, welcome to Defender Friday. It's great to have everyone here. Weekly rendezvous with some amazing folks here at Lima Charlie, as well as the overall security community. We've got some awesome stuff. Wade, it's great to have you here. You are an honored special guest of the day. Do me a favor, man. We already know where you're from and what you do from a side conference perspective. But give us a lowdown on who Wade Wells is. We'd love to get to know you more.
Yeah. So I work as a detection engineer for a large financial organization who doesn't like me to talk that I work there. So that's about all I'll say there. I've been in security for 8 years now, all in the SOC pretty much. I grew up in the SOC, different MSPs, different 24/7s or just day and night type of deal. My other big love is, of course, threat intelligence. So I worked at a smaller company who threw threat intelligence at me, and I had never done it before. So I actually built a program there. It was really, really fun. And I teach the threat intelligence course over at Anti-Siphon Training for Black Hills. I do a lot of stuff with Black Hills. I'm really good friends with a lot of them. I'm on their podcast, which is talking about the news every Monday, which is always fun. It's just pretty much a bunch of InfoSec security people complaining. So if you want to complain, go over there.
Sir, you didn't need to add complaining at the end of that sentence. You could have just left it as it's a bunch of information security people on a microphone. Oh, that's awesome, man. Well, thanks for being here. There's so many different things to delve into. I'm curious. I want to like get to know you a little bit better, but I want to start out with that. I grew up in a SOC. Like, do me a favor. Tell me a little bit about like the first parts of your career, what that was like, and what do you mean when you say I grew up in the SOC?
So I always like to start out with my before IT career, right? So I actually worked at In-N-Out Burger for 7 years beforehand. I always talk about this. It always comes up.
Okay,
right?
stop. Just a secret item on the menu that everyone needs to go try. What is it?
So animal style burgers, right? I'm a big, so I won't even say animal style burgers. I will say mustard fried. That's when they cook the burger in mustard, and then they add they add pickles onto the burger. So I usually do extra mustard fried, add mustard. Yeah.
Mustard fried? Okay. All right.
I
knowing what a triple was.
So working at In-N-Out, I will never have a good burger at In-N-Out ever again because I can't make it myself. But
fair enough.
I made the jump from In-N-Out to IT because a data center I worked at, or a data center I knew someone who worked at, needed customer service people, and I was tired of flipping burgers. So what better person than the In-N-Out manager to come and help them with customer service? And 9 months at the data center, I got offered to move to a local managed security provider here in San Diego. It's very much like a mom and pop shop, only around like 100 people working there. And I was put into their SOC, which was awesome. It was a 24/7 SOC, just initial triage analyst, right? Going through alerts, reading logs all day, escalating. I was there when WannaCry hit, which was an awesome time. That was, nice. That was really cool, to tell you the truth. Watching the screens light up.
I can only imagine what that's like. I mean, for those of you, I'm like kind of very casually glancing over the list here, and I'm assuming a lot of you were around when that happened. However, man, John is like just on it today. This is amazing. Being around and in information security when WannaCry dropped, like that's one of those pivotal moments. Like, where were you when this happened? Kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, yeah. From there, right, of course, I made the jump into like the local power company. I got into their SOC, which was also cool because we had to deal with a little bit of OT stuff and SCADA, and there's a completely different animal as a large corporate beast. And then I worked there for a year and then moving into the financial sector. So the last 4 years have all been or 5 years, have all been at different financial companies besides a small stint at Mandiant. which
Okay.
yeah, just a small. But
We don't talk about that.
we can. I didn't.
Hang on, when
I
you
didn't
say
particularly
management, is
like it.
that
Yeah.
pre-FireEye, post-FireEye, pre-Google, post-Google, pre-eyesight, post-eyesight?
Mandiant while FireEye connected. I was there when they split, so I didn't know what was going to happen. And I was working R&D, and I wound up not really liking the job. Like I wrote
Gotcha.
Python connectors all day, and I was like, this isn't security. And luckily, my old job let me come back.
You know what? I got off a call about 20 minutes ago, and then we figured out that ChatGPT can write most of those connectors for us.
Oh my God, I hate myself now. Yeah, I use it too much, to tell you the truth.
All right, so Wade, let's move into why, how, and why. Like where? Okay, so I get this. I get bringing it growing up in the SOC. How does that lead to detection engineering?
Yeah, right. So I know the suck of the SOC, right? I understand what it's like to deal with false positives all day, and then having to escalate that to people who are making the detections. So it's a natural progression, right? The other big thing is I never wanted to work IR. I don't want to be on, like, honestly, my personality would thrive in IR and I think I would love it, but I'm too scared that I would love it too much, right? One of those things.
Yeah, dude, I want to be sitting in a boardroom with you at 2 o'clock in the morning looking over some logs. We're just setting and walking our way to heaven.
And that would be, yeah, and I would absolutely love it. And, but I was like, so I've positioned myself, I got into CTI, which worked out, right? From SOC to CTI. And then I realized, okay, there's this new thing coming out as a detection engineer, which goes, I would say it's kind of the new hot topic, one of the newer hotter topic items type of deal. So natural progression. I know what the logs look like. I know what people are feeling when they're going through the alerts. I also know what logs to bring in, right? Understanding how to read those logs and then what platforms we're going to need in order to build the detections off of, and then the strategy of which detections to build. Especially with having that CTI background, I'm constantly watching the news, reading, going on Twitter, seeing what the hottest, new, greatest stuff is. If my threat intel team isn't feeding me, I'm finding the latest TTPs to try to go after. But it's just a lot.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm curious how does okay, you touched on a couple things that I really want to bring up for everyone here. First off, the importance of understanding false positives and understanding how to handle and mitigate false positives. I don't know if folks understand just how important that is. And I don't want to say there's a 50-50 split between the two, but I do think that part of detection engineering is understanding that your role is not to find evil, but to minimize alert fatigue.
Like that is the key thing between detection engineering and threat hunting, right? Like we're both looking around the logs and looking at the same thing, but at the end of the day, I have to come up with something where the SOC analysts aren't going to get burnt out if it's a false positive every day, right?
Yeah.
One excellent thing evolving around this is how do I pass my knowledge down to that analyst as well as they're doing those alerts?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of the alert, what is it? ADS, alert detection strategy, from Palantir. So if you go look that up on GitHub, it's actually a full report on every single detection. So we write a detection, then we write this full report on this detection. And in that, we actually write what we think what the false positives actually are, what the rate is. So you also have to think what's the confidence of this alert, right? What's the criticality of this alert? So if it's a low confidence but a high criticality, we're probably going to need it. But so if we're more attuned to false positives in that scenario. The other big one is, of course, the sensitivity of an alert. Like, how different is this alert to our environment as compared to others, and does it hold secrets? But in that ADS report, which I'll call it, we actually write up the whole response. We write up when we tested it, how we tested it, who we tested it. It's all in Markdown. But that usually comes with our strategy of how many false positives we're going to allow. It gets rough sometimes. I was trying to do some detection based on recon attacks this week, and I was just banging my head against the wall. Like, I cannot let any of these recon alerts go because there's too many devs out there running NL tests to see if their AWS box is on.
Yeah. Dude, I'm looking over this right now, this ADS framework. I actually remember seeing this. For a full disclosure, everyone here, it is 6.5 years old, but I remember seeing this when it first came out. This is genius. Because it gives a really good perspective on how to qualify what it is that you're writing.
Exactly.
And qualify your detections. This is awesome.
There's a lot of the times I've actually wrote a detection, right? And usually I'm trying to write both of those at the same time, but a lot of the times my detection logic becomes before that. And as I'm writing out the description, I'm realizing this detection is stupid. Like, I just spent all this time. An analyst isn't going to be able to do it at all.
I'm curious, how valuable is it, or how important is it for you to be able to replicate the thing that you're alerting for?
Very. Then this is, at least for me, it's very, very important to be able to replicate that. And this kind of hits a topic that I've been thinking about is doing detection as code, right? Which is a CI/CD pipeline for detections. At the end of it, you're supposed to validate that detection, right? Most detections you need to validate are not going to be able, at least the critical ones, are not going to be able to be validated automatically. You're going to probably have to have hands on keyboard to do something funky, or to log into some type of weird account and do something funky. But we get on it. I have an extra box that I have. I have been nuked several times by AVs and EDRs and had my laptop completely destroyed and had to send it in to IR to pull all my bookmarks for me. So I am constantly testing, constantly trying to figure out ways around our products, as well as handing stuff off to the red team, right? I'm like, I can't do this. Let the red team figure it out.
Yeah. I like Newman just called out here. Every detection will rewrite has to test and validate. But I'm going to throw a little bit of a contentious point in. Anybody's welcome to just kind of, wait, I want to get your thoughts on this too. Let's just say, hypothetically, I'm going to pick a random technology. Nothing is guiding my decision here whatsoever. Pulse VPN. Don't know where that came from. Let's imagine a critical 0-day drops for Pulse VPN. Never happened. Again, random. Christopher Luff should be laughing because he and I talk about this weekly as these things happen. But let's just say Pulse Secure gets a vulnerability out there, and the only way to detect it is to either see an exploit in action or to wait for an exploit in action. What's the value of, let's go try this thing?
Not a lot, right? That's the thing. I would say 0 days. You're not, like, maybe you write something if the POC code is out already, right? And you can throw it over to your red team and have them do it. But honestly, that's why the cyber, like kill chain or MITRE ATT&CK, right? You're going to hopefully catch them in a different part of the attack instead of that execution or doing that exploit. And honestly, it's going to get patched, and then the detection is going to go away because you don't need it anymore most of the time. So if you're building the detection, you want to build it after the exploit, not technically during the exploit.
All right, so let me drop this in here for everybody. Something to think about. In the ADS framework that Wade's talking about, there's a bullet for technical context. And for me, technical context needs to be a recognition of where in the kill chain you are, or where that detection might be. And maybe it's in a different bullet point. I'm not sure, but Wade, I'm curious. You dropped where? Well, okay, good. Where else is it in?
Category. I think it's the second one.
Oh, categorization. Oh, I thought that was. Oh, okay.
Here,
all right,
look, I'll drop something else that I recently wrote. I wrote a ChatGPT bot. If you have ChatGPT,
my dude, now we're talking. By the way, for anyone who's curious, categorization literally says a MITRE tactic. So let's just pretend Matt didn't say that out loud.
You can feed that bot detection logic, and it'll pump out an ADS for you. But then, of course, I do not take it 100%. You have to validate it, but it's been getting pretty good.
All right,
as I build it out.
We brought on Wade as a guest, and here you are just dropping these amazing bombs.
I come with links. I come with links.
Dude, you come with bots. You know what I mean? Few people come with bots.
So in that technical context, though, that is where I'm like spilling my guts, right? The strategy is the executive summary, right? Like we're looking at these logs with this type of stuff to detect this. The technical context, I'm going to be like, this is what NL test is for. This is all the flags for NL test. Here's the actual link to Windows NL test. And then here's the exact log that we're looking for in this detection so you can understand it, right? So you're going a little bit deeper just so if that initial triage analyst is looking at it, and it could be a triage analyst who has years of experience or no experience, you should be writing to the person who just got in the SOC and being easily able to transfer your knowledge to them. And honestly, that's not easy to do.
No, it's not, but it's critical. It's very hard to relay to folks. And let me just be really clear to everybody here as well. That didn't mean to sound as condescending as it might have come out, but let me just be very clear for everyone. The ability to take a day off and still have the things that you've transcribed into a detection be read and understood is such a valuable goal. I'm not going to call it a lesson. I'm going to call it a goal. Because you want to be able to write detections in a way that someone can read it and be like, all right, I have a basic idea or an advanced idea of what's being looked at for here. There's ways for me to go and run those down if I need to. But more importantly, I don't need to contact the person who wrote this to be like, what the hell were you looking for here?
And we've all gotten that alert where we're just like, what the heck is this? And there's a link in the description to some tweet that's been deleted. And you're like,
yeah. So someone said earlier, cyber Twitter intelligence. And I thought that was actually, I mean, I'm just going to tell y'all, you'd be surprised at just how much prior to Elon's takeover, Twitter used to be a valuable threat intelligence source. And maybe it still is.
It's not. It's clearly degraded. I was in both pre and after. And I watch it, but far less. There's a couple other avenues, a couple Discords that I really look at. But
there we go. Okay. Everyone's moved to Discord now. I like that. Discord has Spotify integration. It's much better that way. So there was a question that came in, which I want to make sure we get asked. So there's two that both came from John. One of them was the one that's actually been asked before. We'll ask that second. When you write detections, do you guys, what type of, I don't want to say what language, because I don't want to call Sigma a language. It's more of a taxonomy, but how do you go about writing detections? Is it organization specific or what's up?
Tool specific. So I've built out detection as code in like several different environments now.
Yeah.
And I've used Sigma as a base for the configuration files, right? But almost every time I've just gone with the actual logic of whatever tool that detection's in. Usually the team is going to know that. I don't have to teach the whole team Sigma, right? I don't have to worry about the translators actually failing or some weird new language or a data model that doesn't exactly link up to theirs or like Splunk fields, right? It's never perfect. So I just stick in whatever language the tool is. I'll write stuff in Sigma and share it just because that's the better thing for the community. But usually pseudocode is the best, right? Like if I do that, like MITRE has a bunch of pseudocode up on there on attack. So you can understand it.
Yeah. Yeah, I got you. Second one was, and not to like rattle off a list of questions here. I think this one's actually really cool. How do you do continuous validation of rules long-term and at scale?
Yeah. So that's really hard, right?
Yeah.
You definitely have to have some type of like validation ready. So once again, going back to like detection as code stuff in those config files, we actually have like a time last validated, right? So you're going to be updating those and you can do a search, just a quick Python query of all your configuration files, like what hasn't been updated in the last 6 months. The other thing is people think if a detection doesn't fire, it's not worth anything. No, that just means it hasn't seen anything, right? Like
that's right.
Just because it doesn't fire, it means it's probably a good detection.
Yeah.
Right. So doing that validation, usually you're going to have to work with, you're going to have to work with, I am a firm believer of Atomic Red Team. I've used it since the very beginning. I actually enjoyed using the Python automation they used to have rather than the PowerShell, but
thank you. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I wish the Python was still alive. I could probably write something, but I'll ask ChatGPT later type of deal. The other thing is handing it off to the red team or a purple team, be like, hey, we need you to validate these detections for us. That has actually been a thing I've done several times as well.
I like that. And I think that's an important thing, like concept for everyone to keep in mind. What you said about a detection that never fires. There's some joke in here about an alarm that never goes off, or or whatever, or something. But I think there's a really valuable lesson in, like, first off, writing, being confident. Like, imagine you go through all the steps. Let's use the ADS as an example because it's a good central theme here. You go through all of these steps and you have what is essentially a well-crafted detection that's out there, and it never fires. Right? That is I'm not going to say it's a great place to be in because obviously you hope you're not missing anything. Yeah. But if you put so much confidence and work into it and everything like that, there will come a point in detection engineering where like your first, maybe second draft is you got it. Like that's the right one. And if you can lean on that confidence a little bit, it will help you write detection rules even faster.
Another interesting part is when you're doing detection, right? Was there a prevention, or when you're doing the validation, was there a prevention for that validation, right? And then what are the logs if it wasn't prevented, right? Not all your security controls are going to work every time, which totally blows open a whole nother door for detections, right? Like I need to detect if it was ran and blocked and if it was ran and not blocked. Like, how am I going to do that?
Yeah.
Like, as you were saying, at a past job, I'm sticking with the NL test category. I did not know about NL test probably like 2018. I never seen that ran as a recon. I was actually watching a threat intel and they're like, yeah, this is a new thing. This is a newer thing that we're seeing a lot. I actually looked in my network. NL test wasn't ran at all. There wasn't a single one. So I'm like, all right, I'll just block NL test from running in the entire network. And if it runs, that's an easy detection. Like a week later, someone opened a Word doc and it ran NL test to do it. And I was like, perfect, I won.
Great timing.
Took a picture, sent it to my boss. I'm like, I'll take my raise later. But,
Yeah, right. For now, you're buying me lunch.
yeah.
That's awesome. Wait, someone who's watching this right now or might be watching the recording in the future is like, I want to get started in doing that. How does one get started in detection engineering? And your answer can't be you must work in a SOC.
No.
So sorry.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is let's assume someone's familiar with telemetry, familiar with those things, and they're like, I want to make that transition over, but how do I get started? Because I don't know how to write detections.
Yeah, it's always build a home lab, right?
There you go.
Set up some SIEM, set up some EDR, set up some free security tool where you can pump telemetry into it. You can run attacks on a host that you have everything installed on, and then go look to see how you would do that. The one hard part is I would definitely say find a data set, and not necessarily you did, but find a data set that has false positives in it, because then you have to learn how to tune around those false positives and create those really good detections. The thing is, like, every single organization is going to be absolutely different for detections, just because there's going to be weird things running around. Lawbasses that are used all over the place at one company aren't going to be used at the next. So it's that's the one key thing. There's also MAD 20, right, which is MITRE ATT&CK's training arm. They have a YouTube. They actually have a playlist on detection engineering for like with MITRE ATT&CK, right? Honestly, they have several different playlists for a bunch of different trainings they have. Those things are fire. Nobody knows about them. They're absolutely free on YouTube. Highly suggest go checking out those videos. They talk about a bunch of different stuff with detection engineering.
I'm gonna throw that into the. Oh, never mind.
Try to look up MAD 20 on YouTube.
Yeah.
Because if you go to their website, they try to get you to pay for it. It's $500 and you can get like 6 certs with them. But all the videos are free on YouTube, and then you don't get a cert. But honestly, I did the whole thing, and I only got 2 of the certs, and I was like, it's fine.
I'll tell you something. If somebody were to roll in with, and please let me be clear, I'm not throwing any shade, but I'm definitely calling out, like, how are we supposed to interpret these things, right? But I would say it's one of those things where it's like the proof's going to be in the pudding. You know what I mean? Like, I would almost say, okay, for anyone who's like trying to get into this and stuff like that, go down the YouTube route, go watch what people are doing, see how the attacks are executed, see see the different steps. And I think Wade's calling out, like, look at these frameworks. And the first detection you ever write does not have to adhere to a super advanced framework that you're building a library or a catalog out of, but just get started. I give folks this advice too. Go run CMD in your environment and go find it. And it may sound really basic and simple, but run cmd.exe on a system and then go see what that telemetry looks like. And if you're sitting there and you're like, let's walk through this example really quick. You're sitting there and you're like, I have no way to track whether cmd.exe was written. It's like, okay, cool. Well, is that a you or is that a telemetry thing? Right? And it might be a telemetry thing, because if you don't have any form of process introspection, you know that you might need it. Cool. So now I've got to weigh the balance of adding in telemetry so I can have more efficient detection. And then Wade, I'm kind of leading to the question with this as well. How much does detection engineering really rely on a specific, maybe higher level criteria of telemetry versus out of the box operating systems?
Usually a lot. Unless you're going to install like a Sysmon or something like that. And even then, I would say that's higher level knowledge, right? So like EDR and all the Windows logs you can give me are usually my bread and butter. With that, EDR is usually right there with everything you need. But sometimes you can't always tune stuff, right? Like every now and then, like command line doesn't come up and you're like, gosh darn it. Like, what am I going to do with this? But usually that's about right. And it's also it's also hard to set all that stuff up and then read it, especially in a free environment, right? So I always recommend like training stuff. TryHackMe has, of course, a bunch of good trainings to do that. Awesome. One good book I always suggest that I feel like this comes across in every time I talk about detection engineering. It's Practical Threat Detection Engineering, a hands-on guide to planning and developing validating detection capabilities. That book's my Bible. About. That book's my Bible, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. That's awesome, man. I'm gonna see if we can find a link for that and drop that in really quick. If not, we'll throw it in the Defender Fridays channel here at the Lee Majaro Slack. Awesome. Wade, this has really been, and we've got a couple minutes here. This has been a really, really cool kind of like deep dive, fast-paced deep dive into the world of detection engineering. For anyone who's out there and is just kind of like, oh my gosh, this was so much stuff to go through. I think like asking Wade to focus on some starter techniques and stuff is a great way to be about it. And also, I would highly recommend for those of you who are out there in an organization where you might not have a detection engineer, see if your org is like looking for one. You know, it might be one of those things, and I'm not saying do more work than you need to, and I'm definitely not advocating for that. But if you've got a unique niche environment and you spend most of your time fighting false positives, and that's what the SOC does, then you might have a need for a more crafted approach towards things. So just keep that in mind too. Wade, super awesome discussion. I want to give you the last 30 seconds or so, if you wouldn't mind. Tell us a little bit about your course coming up in case anyone's curious.
Yeah. So I am teaching, what day is it on? I believe it's June 20th. I'm teaching CTI 101 course.
Nice.
So the way I actually developed this course is when one of the companies I was working at didn't have an Intel program, they actually asked me like, hey, Intel's your baby now. And I'm like, all right. So I read every book there was out there, grabbed every link and stood up a complete program. Mm-hmm. And actually for my master's thesis or whatever, Practorum, the last project, I actually realized there isn't a cheap and good threat intel course. There's good and expensive, there's cheap and bad, but nothing in the middle. So I actually developed this entire course in my master's program and put it all together. The one crazy thing, as I'm like throwing links, every single slide has a link to more data. I think as I do the course, there's around 90 different sources of information because I actually had to provide sources for this master's course.
Yep.
So I'm teaching it at Anti-Siphon's IR Summit on the 20th. I also teach it at Wild West Hackin' Fest, which is in early October, which I'm also a keynote speaker for there.
Dang, awesome, man. All right, lots of ways to get in touch with Wade, folks. It's cool. Wade, thank you so much for being here. We're going to replicate some of these links into the channel, but huge thanks for being our guest today. It's great to have you, sir. To everyone who's here watching here on Defender Fridays, y'all know this is like one of the best hubs for this on a weekly basis. Although we know that Wade's on a podcast, which also gives more exposure to him as well. On top of that, everyone, thank you all for being here. It's great to have everyone on the crew. Those of you that came up on camera, you know I always love sharing the stage with others, but Wade, a huge thank you for you being here as well. With that said, everyone, this has been Defender Fridays. We'll catch y'all next week. Same place, same time, but only 7 days in the future. All right, Alan, take care. See you then.